We don't have a crystal ball here on the walk-off. We're just a couple of bonehead comedians that love baseball more than we probably should. Good morning and welcome to the walk-off. I'm Scott Belford, joined as always by the best co-host in the biz, Adam Mack. We are doing something special for today's show. Now, we're actually recording here on Thursday, but we did just finish up an interview with Mitch Bannon. He is the Blue Jays reporter for Sports Illustrated, and so we got into all sorts of good stuff. So rather than laying down kind of a second episode of the same stuff, we figured, especially with this All-Star break happening, that there's no pertinent Blue Jays news here, that we'd throw these together here.
Hey, I mean, fingers crossed Juan Soto gets traded to the Jays tonight, and our whole interview with him is like, oh, we have to redo it. I mean, I hope that's the curse that we're bringing on ourselves, all right?
I am still on the road, but I do have good internet this time, so we're not going to lose the episode like last time. Again, apologies for that. Great mailbag from Tuesday, by the way. Really appreciated all the interaction. Just a reminder, we do have Long Toss coming up on Sunday, our regular scheduled time, 6 Eastern until 8 Eastern. And that's going to be on our YouTube channel. You can follow us on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, on Instagram, The Walk Off Podcast, and, of course, Discord. Buddy, our Discord is just, like, it constantly kind of blows my mind how, like, happening and full of people it has become.
Yeah, that's great.
Like, we're pushing 200 members here, so you can still join for free, and you always will be able to. The link is in the show notes. And you can go through the process of doing that there. I get some messages every once in a while on Twitter from people being like, hey, I signed up for Discord, but I'm having a tough time figuring it out. So if you do have a tough time figuring out, shoot us a message. We'll send you the link. It's really not that difficult. And all sorts of people in there. Okay, let's give a shout out to our Patreon before we throw to our interview with Mitch here.
Ah, fuck.
That's on you, bud.
That's on me. All right, hold on. I got this. We got this. All right. Patreon.com/The Walk Off Podcast. $4 a month. I mean, it's $1 a week. Gets you access to all of our movie reviews, all of our early access interviews. This one, for example, by the time anybody's seeing this, it will be Friday morning, but as Scott mentioned, we recorded it Thursday morning, and it went up onto Patreon early, so anybody that wanted a sneak peek, that was how they did it. We also have, what am I looking for?
Movie reviews.
Movie reviews. Thanks, Scott. I told you before we did this, I said my brain has shut down.
It's not on.
I used every ounce of power I had to get through that early morning interview with Mitch Bannon, and
you know what this tour of me doing out east has proved? Thank goodness that we are in Edmonton and Calgary and on the same time zone.
Oh, can you imagine?
Oh my God, man! Like if I was living in Halifax trying to do this with you, like that 3-hour difference, I don't know how people do it. Like it's just like.
Man, I didn't get into stand-up comedy so that I could wake up at 7. Let me tell you that for free. Holy. All right. We appreciate all of our Patreon supporters. So big shout out to David, Abraham, Michael, Sarah, John, Simon, Rashid, Joshua, Jeremy, Ian, Dunedin, Bob. Now John and Wyatt have joined the Patreon as well. So big thanks to all of you. That's all I've got for Patreon.
Lovely. Well done. Nailed it, buddy. 3 hours earlier than me, and you just did it like a champ.
I'm groggy. I'm still groggy.
Okay, so the Blue Jays back in action tonight. I mean, this is being recorded Thursday, so Friday, but playing the Boston Red Sox. Pretty big series there. The Boston Red Sox, of course, 2 games behind the Blue Jays for that final playoff spot. If you had to just take a random guess here, Adam, right now, best of 3 games in Boston, so Boston gets to actually play with their full roster.
Yes. Well, not with Chris Sale.
Chris Sale out, injured. You think the Jays can take 2 or 3? I mean, we're optimists, right?
Man, I think we're going to come in like guns a-blazing. I think this is going to be a statement. I think we're going 3 for 3. I think. Man, I think, okay, if we don't, like, this is I mean, how high of stakes can anything really be at this point in the season? But, like, this has real, like, if the Red Sox sweep the Jays, that's some real wind in their sails to go into the trade deadline as buyers.
Yes.
Right? And go, okay, we are close. We are only, a couple pieces away from, let's go do it. Let's go out and make the move for, a Luis Castillo or whoever, right? So that double impacts the Blue Jays because now it affects, every extra buyer there is at the trade market is going to drive the price up, right?
That is such a great point, man. And that is one thing to keep in mind as Blue Jays fans is that a sweep of this Boston Red Sox team right out of the gate after this All-Star break could really, really impact the way that Red Sox front office approaches this trade deadline. I think they are going to be buyers either way. However,
I don't think they're going to be sellers. I mean, Trevor Plouffe with John Boy was like the Red Sox could be sellers. I don't think they're going to be sellers. But I mean, like you said, there's a difference between being like, okay, let's really go for it, and let's kind of stand pat and see what happens, right? So these are three big games, man.
If they get swept, they're 5 games back of that final wild card spot. Yeah. That is quite substantial.
Yeah, so these are very important games coming out of the All-Star break. So, and also more motivation for the Jays to go for it, So
Jays better come ready to play. Absolutely. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Enjoy the interview with Mitch Bannon. All the best. Have a good weekend. We'll see you for Long Toss on Sunday. So thrilled to once again be joined by Blue Jays reporter and insider for Sports Illustrated, Mitch Bannon. Welcome back to the Walk-Off, man. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. I think that's the first time I've been called an insider. I don't think I'm quite there yet.
Well, we're gonna throw it out there. Let's see somebody argue with us. All right. How was your All-Star break? Did you enjoy the few days off there?
Yeah, it was a much needed break. I feel like it was weird this year because like with the draft being there. And then so close to the deadline, it makes it a little busier than usual. Like you're up until 2 a.m. covering the draft in LA, and then you're in deadline mode now. So it's it wasn't the break I would have loved, but it was a break.
Did you get a chance to watch the home run derby and the All-Star game?
I didn't get a chance to watch the derby. I watched the highlights the next day, but I watched the game for sure. Yeah.
What were your thoughts? I personally thought the All-Star game was fantastic. I thought the Derby was so fun. Is it possible MLB is becoming good at promoting their own product?
I think it's a little 50-50 in that they probably have the easiest product to promote in this kind of setting.
You're don't get
no one's tackling each other. It's not like the NFL Pro Bowl where it's okay, guys, no one touch each other, no one tackle. You can just be go play baseball. Pitchers still throwing 98. Guys still try to hit home runs. It's the same thing. And also all the guys, I think a lot of the guys they send, we see it every day in Toronto with Vlad and Bo and those big personalities. A lot of the young guys are really good at kind of stepping into the limelight right now. They maybe don't do a good job every day kind of promoting that, but in the All-Star game setting, it really shines through, I think.
9 straight AL All-Star wins. This is just luck and coincidence, right? There's nothing we should be reading into this.
I think people used to think for a long time in the interleague play, the American League had the edge because of the DH. And I think just having that extra bat and having an extra competent player on your roster was a big thing for the AL teams, but it's not a thing anymore. So maybe it's just kind of now it's luck, but a few of the other ones are I don't know. I'm sure it is luck, but 9 straight, hard to argue with that kind of dynasty.
It's not a small sample size anymore. Exactly. What did you think of the mic'd up stuff? I thought I feel like they did stuff this time that was so fun for the fans that maybe they should have been doing for years now, but are at least starting to catch on.
Yeah, I loved the mic'd up stuff. It's so much fun, and it's you got to do it on the right guys. You can't put it I don't think Mike Trout. No offense to Mike Trout, greatest baseball player on the planet, would be a great mic'd up guy. Maybe it would be interesting to see what he's saying out there, but you need guys who are going to be basically unfiltered. And anybody could have told you that Alek Manoah was going to say and do the stuff he did on the mound, and it was going to be super entertaining and was not going to filter himself and was still going to have fun. If you do it to the right guys, and like I think the audio quality was really good, and that's sometimes an issue with the mic'd up, because you can't even really hear what they're saying. But I think it was a great confluence of like the technology getting better and better and better for that stuff, and finding the right guys to do it with.
Like for the All-Star break and the All-Star game, I almost was like, can we mic everyone? Like, I know it seems like a little too much, but I don't know if micing guys up in regular season games would work. But man, that All-Star game, like they should just be taking advantage of it at every turn.
Yeah, for sure. And it makes like people want the players to be relatable, and nothing's more relatable than like just basically being right beside them and like hearing what they're like down on the fields and seeing how they think about stuff. Like it's the perfect setting to do it in, because it's so low stakes and everyone who's there is happy to be there. Like they're being celebrated. They're all having good seasons. No one's in a slump right now. Like you're at the All-Star game. So it is kind of the perfect setting to do that.
So you touched on it just off the very top here of the show, the draft. And I know that the Blue Jays wound up taking, and I might mess his name up here, Brandon Barrera? Barrera?
I believe it's pronounced Barriera.
Barriera. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you, Mitch.
We haven't had a chance to talk to him yet, but I'm 85% sure that's how you pronounce his name.
Just from looking at his stats and his background, what do you think of the pick?
I think it's an interesting pick. Like first, his name was like on the radar as the guy who would go in that range, maybe even a little higher. So I had like looked him up and like seen his stuff before, but he was really just kind of on my radar. It's like, oh, he's a high school arm that like someone else will probably take this risk on. This isn't going to be the guy the Jays take. And then he falls to the Jays, and they're the team who takes the risk on him. And it's like, it's a risk in a sense that like all high school draft picks are risks, especially high school pitchers. Like there's a lot of people smarter than I who've done deep dives, and like these are like really high risk, high reward picks. Like a lot of the high school pitchers like flame out. They got a lot of bullets that they need to use to even get to the big leagues. And then how many do you have left when you get there? But I think what was kind of different about him and why they were willing to kind of take the risk on him is he's pretty polished for a high school guy. He throws upper 90s. You're not like expecting progression on, like, he doesn't have to grow into his body to kind of reach his potential. And then he's also got like a 3-4 pitch mix that like at least 3 kind of plus pitches right now. So I think he's a type of guy who's like not the usual project that a lot of these high school guys are. It's just going to be about kind of refining control, facing tougher competition, and staying healthy for him.
In the past, too, the Blue Jays have never really been an organization who have taken that risk on high schoolers, correct?
Yeah, exactly. I think this was the first guy since, I don't know, I'm pulling this out of my butt, but I think 2013, it'd been a long time since they'd taken a high school arm. And they really love their college arms, which is like kind of the opposite, more of the safe, high floor guys. And so I think this kind of speaks to how they view the state of their farm system, where it's like, okay, we just traded out a bunch of top tier talent in Austin Martin and in Gunnar Hoglund and in some of our recent first round picks. Mm-hmm. We got to take some of these high upside shots to kind of replenish the top of the farm once Gabriel Moreno's not in the system anymore. Once Ricky Tiedemann progresses, they need some of those like high upside guys. And in the first round with Barriera, and then I'm sure we'll talk about him later, but Tucker Toman are 2 of those shots, definitely high upside plays.
Can I just hop in here, Scott? Yeah. I just want to, because Mitch, you mentioned Ricky Tiedemann. How far away is this guy from helping this team? Is this a next year situation, or is he still a year beyond?
I think
19, right?
Yeah, like it's hard to say because this is still his first year, which is like crazy to think about. Obviously, he pitched at the complex last year, so he's kind of been around professional baseball. But next year, I see no issue with him getting to the big leagues next year. Like he's going to be in AA this week. So if you're in double, like lots pitchers get called up from AA straight to the big leagues all the time. Like AA, AAA for a pitcher, it's kind of the same thing. Like you're still facing very similar quality. And it's just about getting him innings. I don't think it's going to be this year. Like if it's this year, it's in like a lefty reliever role, and like a lot would have had to go wrong to be calling on your AA prospect and kind of putting that timetable really fast, which I don't think this organization loves to do.
Right.
But
Like you'd almost need to put 10 of your players on the no-fly list to start
exactly.
calling up AA players, right? Not to,
or he goes like
point
full
any
Alec
fingers
Manoa.
here at Kansas City, yeah. Or
Yeah.
goes Alec Manoa, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Just doesn't let up a run for 10 straight starts. And you're like, we gotta like, okay, we'll see what we got here. But yeah, I think next year super realistic. Even like July next year. I don't think it's like a September call up next year.
So you think finish the year in AA, starts AAA next year, and then as long as he's dominating in AAA. Okay.
Yeah, if he starts next year in AAA, like if you're 10 good starts in AAA, you're in the big leagues at that point. So I think it's maybe like finish the year in AA. We'll see how this goes. This is normally a pretty big jump. Like the single A levels to the AA is a big challenge. We'll see how he's done. And he had like some challenging starts in Vancouver at the end there, which is like he was only going 5 innings, giving up 2 runs, which is like the worst starts of his professional career.
Right.
Like I put quotes in challenging because they were still really good, but we'll see how he does in AA. But I could see him starting in AA, AAA, but then you're right on the cusp there.
We won't spend too much time on the Vancouver Canadians because there is so much Blue Jays stuff to talk about here. But I did want your opinion on the fact that the Vancouver Canadians pitching is so impressive. And are we going to see anybody else, like maybe a Sam Roberts, get the bump up to AA this year?
Yeah, I think Sam's kind of interesting because he got a midseason promotion last year and it did not go well. Like he was really good in the first half of the year and then he got promoted to Vancouver and struggled. So I think they might be taking a bit of a lighter approach on him here, being like, we like you. We think you're going to be a good future big league starter, but we just want to keep you in one place. I think he's pitched well enough to get promotion.
Years old, right? Like
exactly.
Just such a young group, a young crop there. Absolutely.
But there's like, there's countless arms in Dunedin and like Vancouver right now. That's like where the fun part of the system is.
It's kind of interesting to see that with this organization, there is a lack of depth when you're talking about starting pitching at the high end of the spectrum, right? The AAA and the AA. But once you start getting into Vancouver and that Florida State League, it's like, my goodness, like they've got a ton of great arms coming up.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of guys who are throwing the 100 miles an hour people want in the big leagues right now.
The thing that everyone is so upset is lacking right now in the Blue Jays pen and rotation in general, I guess. Okay, let's get into the lot this season here. 69 games remaining on the Blue Jays schedule. Despite the fact it didn't feel like it to fans, they did go into the All-Star break on a streak, right? They'd won 5 of their last 6 games. They're a game and a half out of that top wild card spot, but then they're also only 2 games ahead of Boston for that final wild card spot. Out of curiosity, Mitch, in your opinion, how many wins does this team need in these final 69 games to kind of guarantee a playoff spot? And how do you personally feel confidence-wise of us Blue Jays fans getting to watch playoff baseball this year?
I think I'll answer the second one first, just because that's an easier answer for me. I think this is a playoff team. I think this team as constructed is a playoff team. And then I kind of expect it to get better at the deadline. So that gives me a lot of confidence, should give fans a lot of confidence. Baseball's baseball. A lot of things can happen. I think injuries are the big thing that like I don't want to like think about because that could mess up like every single projection. Like if a major player gets hurt for 30 games, like you can throw everything out of the window. But I think as currently constructed and with a healthy team, this is like an 89 to 91 win team, which would be, I think to answer your question, 39 and 30, I think is kind of, I was looking at, should be like the baseline target for the rest of the season. If you do that, I think you're right at like 89 wins, which should get you at the very least, I think that last wild card spot, and then kind of upwards from there. If you get to 40 wins, if you play a little better than that, then you're talking about maybe hosting that round or something like that. I think that should be the baseline that they're shooting for.
Boston is the team that's chasing the Jays currently. Do the Red Sox worry you at all? Like, I look at that team and I honestly believe they're not as good of a team as the Jays, which doesn't really mean anything, but just curious on your opinion.
Yeah, they're in a weird spot, especially after the Sale injury, where it's like they were definitely a team that I was concerned about. Like, I'm like, okay, this team could pass the Blue Jays. when they were going to get Eovaldi back, they were going to get Sale back, when they were going to maybe get some of these guys healthy, and then Sale comes back and now he's on the shelf for maybe the rest of the year again.
Yeah.
So that kind of changes it. But then with the Red Sox, like I looked at their team last year and I didn't think they were better than the Blue Jays, and they beat the Blue Jays last year. And I also think there's like this weird Xander Bogaerts pending free agency thing where he could just go like psycho mode for the rest of the season, try to get his big contract and just put up a bunch of home runs. Like I don't want to doubt the middle of that order, because that's definitely the strength of that team.
I mean, the boys from John Boy, like Trevor Plouffe floated the idea that they might even be sellers. Can you see that as a possibility? Like, I feel like that fan base would lose their shit if that was the case.
Yeah, I don't think they would.
Right? Like
I think they're going to be big buyers, if anything. I think they see that they're, like, even if they don't pass the Blue Jays, like they're still right there with Seattle for that last wild card spot. And then once you get in, anything can happen. Especially Eovaldi, great playoff pitcher. Not having Sale would be tough, but if you can even get him back for the playoffs, even in like a relief role, then you're in business. So I think they should be buying. I don't know if they're going to or not, but I definitely think they would buy.
Well, speaking of buying, August 2nd, trade deadline for this season. You look at the Blue Jays, and I mean, this is not new information. People have been talking about the fact the Blue Jays could use a starter, could use bullpen help, could use a lefty bat for, I mean, it feels like years. I know it's only been since about mid-April that this has been talked about. Where do you number one, do you feel that all of these spots could be addressed? And number two, if not all three of those proposed weaknesses can be addressed, which places does this front office need to handle at the trade deadline to bolster this roster?
Sorry, so three weaknesses. We're going starting pitching, bullpen, left-handed bat.
Lefty
okay.
bat.
Yeah, I would rank them in that order for sure.
Right?
I don't know. Starting pitching and relief, it's kind of like the same. Like they're going to go out and get relievers. They already have tried their hand on a bunch of relievers. So then it's like, how kind of like high are you shopping in that market will be the question. But I think they'll definitely go out and get a starting pitcher. It's just in what
that'll
form.
bolster the bullpen too, right? Because that'll allow you to put Stripling back in, and it lengthens things up.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a question of whether or not they're like shopping in the top tier of that market, like the Frankie Montes, Luis Castillo types, or if they're more like backfilling a rotation, getting a fourth or fifth starter. I think they'll do kind of what they did last deadline for the bullpen, where they like kind of shop in the high end of the market and get a Brad Hand type guy. Hopefully that works out a little better. And then also backfill with some like reliable veterans, like a Joaquin Soria type. And then like the bat, I think they're kind of content with the current state of the lineup. I could be wrong. I think if they make a move there, it'll be like a surprising one, like one we haven't really talked about, or someone we haven't really talked about. I saw rumors in the last few days, or like Scott Boras hinted that the Blue Jays were a team that called on Michael Conforto.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to go about getting that balance, because all you're giving up is money there, money and an opportunity. And like, that's for the Blue Jays, a pretty rich team. That's basically free. You say, hey, okay, you get healthy. See you in September, maybe even later. He's still coming back from a shoulder surgery. Shoulder injuries for hitters are like often kind of a power death sentence for a few months after those happen. So it is a risk in the fact that like maybe he doesn't have it. But I think maybe they go more that route. And then in the trade market, they really hone in on the run prevention.
Mitch, do you think it's insane to think that they could go out and get Michael Conforto just for this year, throw a bunch of money at him, and then maybe he can go back into free agency for 2023? Like, is that something that Boras might be into? I know when you're talking Scott Boras, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, but when you're talking Scott Boras, he's always after the longest term contract for the most money possible, but it might make the most sense in this case for them to show that Conforto still has it and then go. Do you think it's a possibility? I think
Boras has shown a willingness to get really creative recently. Like you look at that Carlos Correa deal where it's like, oh, this is like a 5-year, $200 million deal. Oh, but wait, there's a player option after every single year in this contract. Like I think it might be something like that, in that it's like Cole Hamels signed a deal. I don't believe Boras is his agent last September, or it was like a 1 year, August, 1 year, $1 million deal. let's see if we can get you healthy. It was with the Dodgers. Let's see if we can get you healthy. Maybe you can help us. He didn't end up pitching for the Dodgers. He just couldn't get healthy in time. I could see them going that avenue, just kind of a low cost rehab with us. Let's see if you can get healthy for the playoffs kind of thing. Or maybe like a 1 year and a player option where like, okay, we'll give you $2 million this year, and then you got an $18 million player option for next year or something like that, where it's like, if he likes it, he can stay. I think Boris is the type of guy where it could be a funky contract like that.
Because it is really intriguing to me because, I mean, even if you look at some of the acquisitions last year that helped the Braves get to where they were going, they weren't really guys that you would what's the best way of putting this? Because no offense to like Solarte and Rosario and, you know, even Jock Peterson, but they weren't really guys that I was like, oh, well, now the Braves are 100% winning the World Series when they brought them in, despite the fact that really you can kind of say they are the reason that they did.
Oh, yeah.
Who are there off the radar guys that maybe could really help this team that you could mention off the top of your head?
I don't know if it's off the radar, but Josh Bell's been a guy who's been floated for a long time. Just because, like, I think if they add a bat, it would be in that kind of like left field, right field, DH, first base type, because they don't really have a backup first baseman on the roster. The only issue is Kevin Biggio is like filling that role right now, like the backup first baseman, corner outfield, play everywhere kind of guy.
And has been good.
Exactly. So if you're trying to upgrade on him, like, you kind of got to shoot a little higher because he's been a productive player this year, especially against right-handed pitching. So it would be hard to shop at that tier of the market and feel like you're getting an actual upgrade on your roster right now.
So, Mitch, I know that you are tight on time, so we're going to flip to listener questions really quick here. I did want your opinion on one last thing before we throw to Adam here and get into the listeners. The Oakland A's stadium it's literally falling apart at this point. It's kind of embarrassing. The MLB commissioner Rob Manfred came out just last week and was like, listen, a deal has to get done for a new stadium. I mean, he's been saying this for what feels like forever now. Do you think that Oakland can get a deal done? And are they kind of coming to the end of their rope on this, like, tug of war they've been playing over the last decade with the city? Like, could Oakland actually be on the go in the near, or on the move in the near future, in your opinion?
I'm only basing this off of kind of what everyone else heard, but when I read between the lines on that sounds like a get this done or the team's gone kind of thing. Like, that's as close to a threat as it gets from like the top of Major League Baseball. And like, you've seen this move with the Raiders. Like, there's a clear plan. Move them down to Vegas. Like, they don't have a baseball team there. They're becoming a big sports market. Like, it's, if the team moves, that's the obvious move. But then there's like something about baseball where it's like moving a team isn't that easy. Like, especially a team like the A's have so much history. Mm-hmm. The fan base there definitely loves the team. Like, they have a really dedicated fan base. You talk to anybody who's played there, maybe they'll talk a little bit bad about the ownership group, but they're never going to disparage the fan base. So it would be tough to see that team move. I definitely don't want to see them move. I love like having a team there. I think they just need a new stadium, but
the history,
if they don't get it, like,
truly, like, it is entrenched in history. It would be such a sad day for baseball if that happened. But I'm just curious if you agree, but it feels like this is by far the closest to an ultimatum that they've ever come.
Yeah, I completely agree. Feels the same way to me.
Okay. All right, let's get into it. Adam, all yours, my man. Let's hear what the listeners are wondering.
All right, first one related to kind of off the radar roster moves. So from Bradley says, what are your thoughts on a Cody Bellinger addition? As a lefty bat reclamation project, perhaps?
Yeah, I saw that kind of floated in the offseason. There was a lot of like Lourdes Gurriel Jr. for Cody Bellinger trade proposals out there. I think they're just not in the reclamation like business as much as that's kind of where they've been for the relievers recently. They don't have like the rope to be giving guys opportunities like that. Like, they're trying to win 90 games right now. They got to go 40 and 30 for the rest of the season to really get in the playoffs. You don't have the opportunity to give a guy playing time who you don't know what you're getting for. You're already kind of like at the bottom of the order. Like, oh, who do we play today? Is it Raimel Tapia? Like, can we give Bradley Zimmer at bats? Like, I think the player is interesting. The upside is obviously there. He's won an MVP, but I don't know if the Blue Jays are the team to take a shot on him.
27 seems so young for Cody Bellinger to just be done already. Past his prime. That's crazy. All right. Next one comes in from Uncle Jer. Says, I was reading an article that the Washington Nationals wouldn't charter a flight for Juan Soto to the Home Run Derby, so he had to fly commercial. So 2 points here. One, is this actually a story, or is this just typical and more common than the average fan would know? And then part two, if the Nationals are going to be this spiteful and treat Soto like this, can you see Soto perhaps sitting? It's not uncommon in other sports to see stars sit out to force a trade.
I think I'll answer the second one first. I don't think Soto would sit out just because like baseball's not that kind of sport. Like it's not a contact sport. You're not like trying to prevent
injuries.
Like most injuries in baseball are freak injuries that like you could have falling down your stairs at home too. Like you just sprain something.
Just
or
ask
something
Robbie Ray
wrong.
about it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I don't think he would sit out. And also like he's not close enough to the end of his contract to really do that. Still got 2.5 years left. Like at that point, it would become a staring contest that would go on for a long time. On the first part, I'm not like super informed on how usual it is, but just seeing like some other reporters talking about it, it seems like it's definitely more common than like the talk of that was led to believe, especially for teams that have one all-star. Like think about it from like your perspective. Are you chartering a flight for one person? Like that seems like kind of a waste of time and money, but like I think it's like a story in that it's related to the timing of the contract. Like who knows if they would have chartered him the fight had he said, yeah, sure, $440 million. I'm a National for the next 15 years. Maybe they're a little more willing to, but like Paul Blackburn with the Athletics also didn't have one chartered, and he was the only player, obviously comparing situations to the A's, because as we've previously discussed, maybe
did you see
apples
that,
to apples,
the Astros went and picked him up in their charter?
Yeah, that's great. Like, look at that, division rivals coming together. Yeah. And who the Phillies didn't offer to pick up Juan Soto on the way. Would have been a great opportunity to tamper. But yeah, I would say it's definitely more common than that story was led to believe. But I still think it's an interesting story when it's related to the contract timing.
Speaking of tampering, I thought it was so funny when Santiago Espinal was like, hey, you'd look good on Twitter, and watch Yankees Twitter just lose their shit. Be like, this is tampering. It's like, I guarantee every player said, hey, you'd look good with us, right?
Yeah. The amount of guys who have said you'd look good in pinstripes with the Yankees is probably off the charts.
Right? Tampering. Come on.
All right. So last one here comes from Becky. Says, would having Juan Soto on this roster impact leverage for contract negotiations with Bo and Vlad in the coming years?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the thought behind that, and I don't mean to be putting words in Becky's mouth here, but is that, okay, if you have Soto, Vlad, and Bo, everyone probably knows you probably don't have enough money to sign all three of those guys. And if you do, like everyone else is gone. Like you're talking about like maybe $1.5 billion tied up in three people. Like that would be crazy. But so then what? You say we'll sign two of you, the first two to take these offers, like get them. I think why you might not have leverage there is because those players all know if we don't get this contract from the Blue Jays, we'll go get it somewhere else. You're not the only one playing in that market. And so if you want to play hardball with your own players, you're just going to scare them off. I don't think that's what would happen. I think it's more you would create options as the Blue Jays where you feel, okay, we have three superstars. Maybe we only have to extend two of the three of these, and we can take the two or three best value deals that we can come up with, as not as much as putting the pressure on the players.
I know that you got to go like in 1 minute here, Mitch, but Juan Soto to the Blue Jays, what, 0.5% chance? Like they'll make an offer, right? They're going to be one of the teams that throw stuff out there. They've been big game hunting before for J-Ram.
Yeah, like he's on the market. They're making that call. Like there's no doubt in my mind that maybe that call's already been made. Like, hey, or preliminary discussions at the very least, but also like them and every other contending team with a decent farm system has made that call. I think the Jays, and we're definitely in like a Jays bubble where we know the prospects better than everyone else, but like they would have what it takes. Like it wouldn't be a can they make the trade? It would be a would they want to. Like if you're willing to send Moreno and Tiedemann and like major league players and other prospects, like you could make a compelling package. It's just then, do you want to gut your farm and go all in for these next 2.5 years? It's the same calculus that the Padres would have to make and everyone else in on them.
We can just end on a yes or no question here. But if it's Bichette, Moreno, Tiedemann, Martinez,
no,
and
I'll stop you there. No,
okay,
I don't.
I wouldn't do that. You've said enough, Scott. No.
Yeah, once you got Bichette and Moreno, and then like I think for me, sitting in the GM chair, the conversation ends there. Like Bo on a good season, Bo is like 3/4, if not more, of the value of Juan Soto. Juan Soto is really, really good, but like I think we're forgetting how good, or people are forgetting how good Bo Bichette was last year, and selling him short would just be a disservice.
Mitch, thank you so much for making time for us in your busy schedule. We really appreciate it and always enjoy talking ball with you. I hope we can have you back sometime soon.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks.
Right on, buddy. Cheers.